What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Man-Made Thoughts. My name is Quatez, and this is The Amazing Spider-Man, Renew Your Vows. So this is after the miniseries. It's written by Gerry Conway, who is obviously a veteran Spider-Man writer, and Ryan Stegman. This is one of his first appearances, and if you see his much later work, you can see that his art has progressed pretty good. But just some of his earlier works still has really, really tight penmanship, and it's pretty good. I just feel like sometimes his Spider-Man head shapes are a little weird. But anyway, let me just bottom line up front you. This, I feel like this is patient zero for the effeminate Peter Parker Spider-Man tropes that we see in Amazing Spider-Man today. And this was like, what, 2016? But anyway, this is the UK edition, so the paper is a little different, the sizing, just the print quality. But I really like the paper. Let's get beyond that. So the story of this, Renew Your Vows, is that basically it takes place if Peter Parker never negated his relationship to Mary Jane. Then they went on and they had a daughter, which is weird because in the Clone saga in the 90s, they actually, it was a baby that was supposed to be born. It was a girl. Norman Osborn had a nurse take her, and no one has ever seen that baby since. But if we splinter off that timeline and we splinter into another timeline, this is a timeline where they stayed together and they had a daughter named Annie Mae, which is different from the daughter that they had in the, MVC2 universe, where it was Mayday Parker, who I feel like is a better character. But anyway, this is the body of an 8-year-old girl. Forget that she has nearly the same proportions as her mom. Forget it. I'm not talking about like chest and everything. I'm saying, forget it. This is an 8-year-old girl. Keep that in mind. Okay, so, we get some pretty good Spider-Man action. You better drink it in because for a Spider-Man book, a book called Amazing Spider-Man, he doesn't really do much in this graphic novel. Like, he really doesn't do much. The women do more of the heavy lifting. He just kind of sits around and dotes like an effeminate Spider-Man. Anyway, so the thing is, he decides. He starts off. He's fighting Scorpion, Mac Gorgon. I'm not sure if I like the way Ryan Stegman, his envisioning of Mac Gorgon. But anyway, his art is still amazing. It's still very, very good. And basically what's happening is that Norman Osborn's grandson, Normie Osborn the second, who is Harry's son, is he's trying to get into the Regent's technology. The Regent has this really crazy technology. So Peter develops this suit that gives Mary Jane powers. It just siphons his spider abilities and gives it to her. What he does, he gets summoned by Mary Jane to come home. It's a code green, which means, hey, the daughter's asleep. It's go time. Obviously that doesn't happen because super genius right here, And she doesn't talk like an 8-year-old either, which was also confusing because she's not drawn like an 18-year-old. She's drawn, or an 8-year-old. She's drawn like a 12 or 13-year-old. So, and she talks like a 16-year-old. So I don't understand. This is like Brian Michael Bendis logic here. But at the time, he was still working for Marvel. So, but anyway, we get a bunch of Peter Parker not really doing much of anything, and Mary Jane is so much better at everything than him. But I did really like uh, this line. There's actually like two lines on this page that I like from Peter. He doesn't get very many good lines, but on this page, he actually does. Once again, this paper quality is really, really good. So, Annie Mae, which is a really silly name, but it makes sense because, Aunt May. But she's talking about how, like, she has a friend and Joey likes Billy, but Joey thinks Billy's a liar. So it's all confusing. Even they have to remind you in the story that Billy has a crush on Joey, and he actually says, "Yeah, Mom, don't you listen?" And then under here they're still continuing that conversation. She's like, "Billy has light up shoes. Wow, good for Billy." And can I have light up shoes? No. Then I feel like this was just Ryan Stegman wanting to flex because that whole page before was really, really boring. So anyway, they get down there, we get some expository dialogue as to completely pointless, dialogue like, "Hey, I got a quadcopter," and he's babbling. He's pretty much babbling. And I get it, Spider-Man's a talkative guy, but he's babbling for no reason at all. He's pretty much explaining to you guys and to himself via caption that, hey, normally you would wonder why he doesn't have any butt shots because he was taping his camera to the wall when he was selling his pictures to the Daily Bugle. But now he has a drone that follows him around because you really needed to know that. Don't know why. And Gloria Grant, keep her in your mind because she has a son named Jermaine. Jermaine goes to school. I'm going to skip a couple of pages, but this is a really cool page. Before I start skipping pages, this is cool. I like stories that are really cool and they have a lot of action and they're crazy. This one, unfortunately, so there's like backup stories in there and stuff. This is where we get to like the effeminization of Peter Parker. So Mary Jane has actually most of the fighting scenes in there and the really cool dynamic posing. I don't know if Ryan Stegman just wanted to draw Mary Jane in like really dynamic poses and stuff. But I mean, she has all of them, every single one. It's like stereotypically Spider-Man poses. She has every single one of them. Spider-Man doesn't even get to pose like that in his own book. But anyway, she's talking, and we go back to what Mary Jane's going on. She has a fashion blog, and she has a modeling thing, and a black friend that does not appear anywhere else ever. You see how like somebody could be like, is this really a Spider-Man story? It's not. It's not. The story even goes out of its way to tell you that it's not a Spider-Man story. Look, once again, very good posing and dynamic work from Ryan Stegman. And what I was saying about Ryan Stegman's art style is that I feel like he started off drawing like simple manga, or at least anime styled. Even the eyes on her, like her mask, pretty much like anime styled, like kind of like the Sunrise animes from the 90s. Sunrise was like everywhere in the 90s. You couldn't get away from them. They had this style with like the big rounded fingers and the somewhat surprised eyes. They even did some work on a couple of episodes of Outlaw Star. I mean, it's very noticeable. It's like episode like 14 to like 18 on. Like they really had this type of look. That's Normie Osborn, by the way. Anyway, all all the cool poses, all of them, every single one goes to Mary Jane. Even so, okay, you would think that a guy, Peter Parker, who's lost nearly everybody in his life, you know, due to inaction and all that stuff, or just plain old, like he could have done something, but he didn't, or he did something, but it was too much too late, or something like that. He doesn't. His wife, his daughter has been kidnapped by these little mole dudes. And Mary Jane, look, effeminate pose. This is like stereotypically how a woman would look, you know, in a powerless position. But Mary Jane darts off and fights, and he's like, oh boy, oh that's, you know, what's she doing? Oh, it's my wife. She's fighting, you know, and it's just he doesn't do anything in his own book. And if the book is named after you and everybody else is doing cool stuff, then you should not be in the book. You know, that's just my thought. Anyway, I'm going to skip a lot of these pages because he still doesn't really do anything cool despite being in a 2-page spread of doing cool stuff. This is a pretty cool scene. So basically, they're trying to get away from the mole man dude. He has this laser that can absorb people's life force and use it, you know, as a weapon. And so they're trying to save Mayday because they end up, not Mayday, Annie Mae, I'm sorry. They try to save her, and there's like a big fire pit because they're in the earth, and she's going to fall off, but then she activates her own web shooter and pulls herself to safety, and her parents end up bumbling into each other and stuff. They get mad and start yelling at each other. She finds a way to save the day. Like I said, Spider-Man doesn't really do much in this story. He's kind of just like the facilitator, as I'm like a counselor. Yet again, another really cool pose. But where is Spider-Man? Where is he? If you guessed way back here, you would be correct. And the only way I knew he was back there is because he has a big giant speech bubble coming out of his head back there. He doesn't even get to punch the mole man in the face. He has a, you know, a cool somewhat dialogue. And nah, we good. He just punches him, but nobody sees who punches him. He might not even have got the punch in. And then they're talking about, you know, hey, can she get a code name and all that stuff? And he's like, yeah, because this whole time he's been against the fact that, you know, she wanted to use her powers and be a hero just like them. But I feel like I said, I feel like this book was patient zero for the effeminization of Spider-Man. And it's kind of like they don't really know what to do with Peter Parker anymore. And this is my favorite superhero of all time. And I was really excited about this book. I mean, really excited about it. I've read this quite a long time ago, but then I reread it and it just made me more mad. He's not manly at all. He's not tough in this. He barely even gets a couple of one-liners out in his own book. But I guess, I mean, if you got into Spider-Man from like Into the Spider-Verse or something like that, then you might like this, because that's the bumbling idiot Peter Parker is who you're looking for. But this is not Peter Parker. This is some guy in a Spider-Man suit that, you know, gets bossed around by his wife and doesn't really understand his own spider powers, apparently. But anyway, I don't recommend this book. I mean, this is an older book too, so it is what it is. But if you guys want to dialogue about this, you know, leave a comment in the chatter box, not the chatter box, the comment box down below. And, you know, if you are subscribed to this channel already, make sure you hit the little bell icon so you can get all the notifications all the times, because I will be posting up videos during this David-19, you know, the word that shall not be named. And I'll just keep the videos coming because I got a lot of comments I could not get to before. So like, share, comment, and subscribe. Thank you guys for watching this video. Peace out. Don't buy this book.